would he be as a candidate? Matthew Continetti writes for the Washington Free Beacon, which is a terrific website. I love the Washington Free Beacon. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my go-to sites, period. First of all, they have Bill Gertz writing, who was one of my all-time favorite writers on national security affairs. And Matthew is the editor-in-chief of the entire website, and he joins us now. Matthew, great to talk to you. How are you, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Laura.
Excuse my voice. I'm battling the crud or whatever we want to call it. But this Christie thing is interesting. You know, Romney comes out, and it's unclear why he's out there except to, of course, link arms with the rest of the establishment to kind of set the table for 2016. But Christie, he got dissed in that Time magazine piece where we found out that the Romney people had basically discounted Christie because he wouldn't answer a bunch of questions in the vetting process, and they thought he was a little bit scattershot in some of his views. And now Romney is seems like he's had a change of heart about Chris Christie. Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and also interesting, as you say, Laura, that Romney won't go away, will he? I mean, every time you think that we're going to move on from the 2012 election and that, the bad news that it presented for Republicans, Romney comes back, and I think the liberal media need the press. But I will say this, Chris Christie is on the verge of replicating George W. Bush's reelection in Texas as governor in 1998. And what that election for Bush in 98 did, where he drew support across the partisan lines, he drew support across ethnic lines, and what that said, that gave Bush an argument to Republicans in general, saying, I'm a guy who can win. And I think that's exactly what Chris Christie has been trying to replicate. He's going to do it tomorrow, barring, an asteroid hitting the East Coast. And the interesting thing is this, Laura, which is Chris Christie is not a compassionate conservative, which is what Bush was. That was Bush's big idea. Christie's argument is a little bit different, which is I'm going to get things done. And I think that so he's going to combine the electoral results from tomorrow with an argument like Washington cannot get anything done, and and a lot of that is Obama's fault. Forget about the Republicans; it's Obama who's been intransigent. But if I'm the president, he'll say to Republicans, "I will actually get things done." So that will be his argument going forward, and I don't think anything wrong does or doesn't say will affect it.
Well, again, they nixed him on the ticket, which, I think Christie could very well have seen the writing on the wall about Romney, and maybe Chris Christie didn't want to be on the ticket. He made it clear that he wanted to run again for governor, to finish his job as governor, and he said he pledged to the people of New Jersey this is what he was going to do. And, most people I didn't believe when they say that. I don't believe them. I actually believed him when he said that. And I've not been the biggest fan of Chris Christie. Let me just say that right now. Everyone thinks Laura's sucking up Chris Christie. The opposite. I like the fact that he's kind of an ethnic brawler. And he's a brawler while kind of, oftentimes, I don't agree with him and everything, but he has a clear, policy objective, and he goes for it. And he's not afraid to take people down in the process. He does kind of what the Clintons did to achieve his objective. He's brutal. And Romney was too genteel. He didn't want to get his hands dirty. Well, guess what? You have to get your hands dirty a little bit in politics. And you always get the sense that, Romney was washing his hands all the time. One of those guys who's always washing. And Chris Christie doesn't care if he gets his dirt under his fingernails. And I think people are attracted to that, in a Republican especially. They're attracted to that kind of working class, that kind of sensibility, where you call someone out in the crowd for being a total horse's you-know-what, and Christie will do that. He is YouTubeable. Very few Republican politicians today are, other than maybe Ted Cruz and a few others, but he's YouTubeable.
He absolutely is. And we shouldn't forget, too, he's more conservative than a lot of the other Northeastern politicians who have run for...
Pro-life.
He's pro-life. He's against gay marriage. And, someone just reminded me earlier this morning, look, the guy who defunded Planned Parenthood in his state and vetoed a same-sex marriage bill is cruising to re-election by 40 points. So those are elements of his background and policy that you won't hear, of course, from the mainstream media. But it is true, and I think you're right to say that he's savvy. Now, look, I'm not crowning anyone here. I'm like you.
We're just looking at it. We're just looking at the situation.
What is his argument in the next 2 years? And I think it's one that's going to demand attention.
Yeah, it's